Yo, what's up, guys? Man, getting off to a late start. Apologize for that. I actually just jumped out the shower. I've been running around nonstop today. It's going to be a busy weekend for me. It's been a crazy busy week. So just ran and got my hair cut, came home, jumped in the shower real quick, and now we're ready to do some boxing chat. Phone lines are open if you guys feel like talking. Um, but yeah, I mean, let's talk about what we got this weekend. See a few of you guys on the chat already. Please hit the thumbs up. Mitch says MTK card on the other monitor. Too much boxing is a good problem to have. Yeah, man. Lots of cards. We had fights last night. We'll talk about that too, right? Kauster says, you're late. I know. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Mitch says, working well with the end of Lo Lopez. And Trey says, let's get busy. Yeah, let's do it. You guys want to talk about this stuff last night? I want to pull up the card here. I want to pull up the entire card because I don't want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Of course, main event's the biggest deal. But Jerry Forrest and Michael Hunter with the draw. Who saw that coming? Michael Hunter. Man, the wheels have kind of fallen off there. Just to put things in perspective where Jerry Forrest is, he kind of, I think he fought in that like summer series that Top Rank did during COVID. So that's where that's where he hit a lot of people's radar. But he's been around for a while. He's fought a lot of prospects coming up, and he's kind of been used as a guy to build prospects resumes off of. What's interesting is he fought Michael Hunter back in 2014. And Michael Hunter won that fight. It was an 8-round decision, but it was pretty much 8 rounds to 0. Right. So that was back in 2014. He shut this dude out. But the year before that, he fought Gerald Washington. Forrest did and lost. He was knocked out by Gerald Washington in 2 rounds. Okay. Michael Hunter shutout decision in 2014. And then let's see, he fought Jermaine Franklin in 2019, split decision loss, but it was close. So he has improved. He went 10 rounds with an old faded Carlos Takam last year. And again, I think that was in the Top Rank series. And in his last fight, he had a draw with Zhilei Zhang. A lot of people felt perhaps he won that fight, but he was actually down in rounds 1, 2, and 3. But he came back and like swept the second half of the fight. So he's been around, he's experienced. But again, Michael Hunter fought him 7 years ago and won 8 rounds to 0. I think all 3 judges had an 80-72. Last night they fought to a draw, and a lot of people felt that Michael Hunter deserved to lose that fight, and he got a little bit of home cooking there because that was in New York. And not that he's a New York fighter or anything, but he was the A-side guy in that fight, right? The quote-unquote name. But, man, if you look at just a couple years ago, Michael Hunter in 2019, he beat Sergey Kuzmin. That was a pretty good win for Hunter. And then he had a draw with Povetkin, who was still a top heavyweight at that time. You backtrack before that, he had beat Alexander Ustinov, who was a massive, very limited, but massive heavyweight. So he had a couple of good wins. I remember he fought Isaiah Thomas when he was back at cruiserweight, beat him. It was a decent win. He fought Alexander Usyk in Usyk's 12th fight, went the distance with Usyk. Lost clean, but still went the distance. So this guy once had some real momentum. And a couple of years ago, he was calling out a lot of people on Twitter, a lot of fighters, and seemed eager and willing to get in there and fight some of these top heavyweights. And now, man, this dude's last 3 opponents are Sean Lafferty, Mike Wilson, and Jerry Forrest. And he just drew with Jerry Forrest. And again, a lot of people thought that he lost that fight. So the wheels have really fallen off for Michael Hunter. For what it's worth, and I tweeted about this a couple weeks ago, when I saw that he was going to fight Jerry Forrest next, I told the Ring Ratings Committee, hey, man, we need to take Hunter out of our top 10 heavyweight ratings. I think he's number 8 right now. We need to take him out. And everyone said, nope, can't do it. You know, he hasn't lost a fight, this, that, the other. I was just shut down. Now I think they're all going to want to do it. So who do we put in? Who do we stick in there at number 10 at heavyweight? Is it Otto Wallin? Is it Robert Helenius? Frank Sanchez? Who do we put in there? I don't know, because none of these guys are really separating themselves from the pack. But at least Helenius has a pretty big win recently. And then the main event, a minor upset. George Arias scores a split decision win over Cassius Chaney. Also on the other card, Trey Lippe Tommy Morrison's son, TKO 1 loss. I saw that knockout pretty bad. Just 8-1 too. He looked kind of pudgy and fat. Let me check his weight. He was 236 last night. Fight before that, he was 229. Fight before that, he was 225. You go back to 2018, he was 215. So I think weight's an issue with Trey Lippe. He just looked fat, pudgy, and slow. And he stood right in front of this dude and just 8-1 too. So that was that. Okay, let's go back to the chat real quick because a few of you guys brought up some stuff I definitely want to talk to. Mandeli, or talk about, he said, Mandeli in the chat said, JoJo looked good at the weigh-in, year of upsets. You know, man, I'm sticking with my prediction. I still think Devin Haney is going to win this fight like 116, 112. I'd love to be proven wrong just because I love upsets. But Devin Haney is not going to pull a Teofimo Lopez here. He's going to be 100% prepared. He has great length. He boxes well from the outside. JoJo does really well on the inside, and he can rough guys up, but he's a natural featherweight. I think he's had one fight at lightweight. Devin Haney is busting at the seams at lightweight. I just think size, length, and hand speed, athleticism are going to be a factor in this fight. But once again, I'd love to be proven wrong. Durden World Order says Floyd has to clout chase, doesn't he? Yeah. Yeah, Floyd. We'll talk about Floyd today for sure. He's just going into full promoter mode this week. And, you know, it's Gervonta Davis fight week. So Floyd's out there yapping and he's just opening his mouth and a bunch of bullshit's coming out. He's just a politician in a lot of ways. He really could run for public office. He talks just like a politician. Check Hook actually got a notification from YouTube this time. Wow. So YouTube actually did what it's supposed to do for a non-corporate entity like myself. It still does happen every now and then. Apex Predator says, Montero thoughts on Triple G sitting on his hands just to get his fight canceled. Yeah, let's talk about that. That's news. So the Golovkin Murata fight's canceled because of the, what is it, the 3rd, 4th, 800th, whatever, COVID variant. Look, real quick tangent. I'm not a scientist, but I am a pretty good observer of things. It seems to me that we're going to have a new variant of COVID every year. It's going to kind of be the new flu. I'm not saying exactly the same, okay? But there's going to be variants, and we're going to have to learn to live with it. And most of the reaction to this new variant has been very, very mild from what I've heard in news reports and seen on the statistics. If you pull up Google, you can pull up CDC data and all that kind of stuff. I don't know about canceling this damn fight. But there's also another fight with Iyoko that's probably going to get canceled too, which sucks. For Triple G, he didn't fight at all this year. It sucks. And it's going to cost him. I think it's going to cost him. He's primed for an upset. And you guys know I'm a big Triple G guy. I was around for his rise out there in Southern California. And it was fascinating to see. It was really, really fun to be around. And, you know, it sucks what happened with him and Canelo and all that kind of stuff because history got changed. The history books got rewritten. But now he's kind of in a diva mode in his career. And I don't blame him, but I've said this a million times. He's in the same space Miguel Cotto was at the last couple of years of his career. Triple G is going to do what Triple G wants to do at this point. The fight with Murata is going to happen. They've been targeting that fight for a while. Murata is a massive star in Japan. There is huge foreign money in that fight. Huge money in that fight. So it's a big, big payday for him. It's technically speaking a title unification. And at this stage of Golovkin's career, it's a very winnable fight for him. It's going to happen next. Maybe it's February, March. Maybe this variant, people freak out and we're shut down for another few months. Who the fuck knows what's going to happen? It's hard to say these days with these people. But my hunch is that it's going to happen at some point in the first quarter of 2022. And then I hope Golovkin's back in the ring by March or June. I truly, truly do. Sucks. Yeah, I see a few of you guys talking about the Triple G thing here. So yeah, Triple G is going to sit and wait for that Murata fight. It is what it is. Ace says, did Hunter look out of shape or am I tripping? Yeah, he just looked out of rhythm to me. And he just looked like a guy who's probably took his opponent a little lightly, which we've seen a lot recently. These guys go in the showcase fights, and if you're in a showcase fight, you still got to prepare like it's an A-level fighter. If you're fighting a showcase fight, you should be blowing your dude out. You should be impressing, right? And a lot of these guys fight down to the level of their opposition. I'm not trying to take anything away from Jerry Forrest, but on paper, Michael Hunter should have won big. And again, these two fought before, and Hunter won 8 rounds to 0. It was an 8-round fight when they were young prospects. So, yeah, there's a little bit steam that's off Hunter's fastball right now. All right. Let's see. Trey says Triple G should be screaming to fight Munguia. I still think that fight's happening next summer. I really, really do. If Triple G fights Murata, which is happening, that contract's locked solid. And again, that's guys, that's big. There's big foreign TV money in that fight. It happens. He unifies titles, and then he fights Munguia next summer. That's another big fight. And they could do that in LA. They could do it in Vegas. They could do it in Texas. So that's a big one. Ace is asking, am I taking calls? Yes, I am. So numbers right behind me. Give me a call if you want to chat. We can do that. Tim says, yo, Mike, Devin looks to be in shape and ready. Yeah, I think, this is the year of upsets. There's a lot of upsets happening. Yeah, I don't see one happening this weekend. Would it shock me? No, it wouldn't shock me if Diaz won. He's very experienced and everything, but I got Haney winning this fight 8 rounds to 4. Giuseppe LaRocca says, salute, Mike. Love the show. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Grazie mille. Ace asks, why don't reporters call out these promoters when they talk hypocrisy? Because they're all scared little bitches. That's one thing. But then also, you do get blacklisted. I talked about this last night. I was on the Hispanics Causing Panic podcast last night on the roundtable. It was a lot of fun. By the way, I found out that a boxing YouTuber, he goes by Mr. Moonshine on Twitter, was involved in a really bad car accident last night. And apparently he's in an ICU. He's in really bad shape. I've never met Mr. Moonshine face to face, but we've interacted on Twitter. I've seen a couple of his YouTube videos and stuff, Punch Drunk Boxing. And he seems like a cool guy. So everyone keep him in your thoughts. I learned on the show yesterday. But anyway, on the roundtable chat I was on last night, we were talking about, I brought up, Team Tank Davis essentially blacklisting Ring Magazine from attending his fights, which is crazy. It's crazy. And it's just because we don't rate him on our pound for pound list and we tell the truth about what he's doing. We don't recognize 4 of his 5 titles that he's being promoted as. So we got punished. Crazy, right? All right, let's jump to the phones. Make sure I got the phone lines up. Okay, let me take a call here. 818, what's going on?
What's up, Mike? It's Ace from Ventura, brother.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing amazing, dude. Hope you're doing well as well, But anyways, man, I see that everybody's talking about Triple G on the comments down there. I'm going to be a hater, I guess, right now, brother. Don't hate on me. But I posed a question, man, and I it's been asked before, but does Triple G really, really belong in the Hall of Fame? I hear a lot of, Hall of Fame talk for Triple G. I like Triple G. He's a good, as a fighter, great fighter, skilled, one of the, best in this era. But the resume isn't there. You know what I'm saying? Like it's and it's not his fault. Don't get me wrong, it's not his fault. But it's people got to stop a halt on that Hall of Fame talk with GG. What do you think?
It would depend on the year. If it's a loaded year and there's more deserving candidates, I would vote for them. But I think he's going to get in. Let me tell you why. His overall body of work. I mean, silver medal in the Olympics, which should have been a gold medal. He got robbed. Over 300 amateur wins. He won gold in a bunch of tournaments, international, tournaments. And then as a pro, he is a 2-time world title holder at middleweight. Now, if he beats Murata, he's a 2-time unified champion at middleweight. He was seen as the #1 guy for several years. He was on the pound for pound list briefly. Many people feel that he has a win over Canelo, who's a first ballot Hall of Famer, and might go down as an all-time great by the time he's finished. So that combined body of work, I think, is going to be enough to get him in. Now, is it first year? I don't know about that. It depends, man. Because some years are really weak and the candidates are not as good, and in some years it's loaded and there's a bunch of good candidates. So it just depends.
Well, I mean, I see your point, and I see where you're coming from with that. But let me ask you this: so accomplishments, he has accomplishments, but can we go ahead and see where how these accomplishments came to be, with what type of opponents he's had? Wouldn't that be worth something? To get into a Hall of Fame, because if we're going to go ahead and base it on that, then we could probably say Gervonta Davis is in the Hall of Fame right now, for example, or
Golovkin's opponents
are, you know what I'm saying?
Well, I think Triple G's opponents are way better than those guys, but his opponents in the amateurs were way better than anyone they've ever fought. But I hear what you're saying.
Agreed, but,
as far as quality okay. The quality of opposition isn't necessarily there as far as all these top guys, but sometimes it's the number of title defenses. It's not just necessarily your opponents. I think Triple G is going to be remembered as a guy that kind of broke through the barrier for the Central Asian, Eastern European fighters to really start to have a name here. And I've talked about this before on my show, with the different fighters, the different waves of immigrant fighters that start coming through in boxing. And it goes all the way back like to the Anglo-Irish fighters and English fighters 100 plus years ago. With every wave, there's growing pains that first generation goes through, where they get ripped off on the scorecards. They get ducked. They get screwed by the system. Triple G was that guy. He got screwed in the Olympics. He got screwed in the pros multiple times, and he's just, I don't feel bad for him. He's going to retire worth well over $100 million. So, it's hard to feel bad for a guy who's done that well financially, but he's paved the way so that these other guys over the next 5, 10, 20 years won't have to go through those growing pains. And I think that's going to be his legacy more than anything.
Yeah, no, I get you. And I definitely understand where you're coming from and where, your points on that. It's more just me. I feel like, the accomplishment the things he's accomplished, are more based on the opponents that he's had. Mm-hmm. If he were to go ahead and, if he would have had better opponents, it's kind of like when you fight, when the best fight the best, you're bound to lose some here and there, So, to me, he didn't fight the best is out there. Like I said, not his fault. But, if he were to go ahead, if he had fought the best or whatever, the top 5 or whatever you want to call it, or whoever you want to place, then I think that would go ahead and, make him more of a Hall of Fame. But it goes back to some people saying, hey, Gotti doesn't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And but look at his resume compared to Triple G's resume. I mean, Gotti actually has a better resume than Triple G.
Gotti's in because,
you know what I'm saying?
Because of the moments Gotti created. Gotti created moments.
Right.
Now, he wasn't the best fighter. He wasn't a pound for pound guy, but he was in how many fights of the year? Like, it was at least 3 that I could think of. How many rounds of the year? So he's just one of those guys. Now, you can have a philosophical argument. Does Gotti deserve to be in? I used to say, hell yeah. Now I've kind of, I'll actually listen to people when they say he shouldn't be, and I'll hear their argument. But dude, I pulled up Golovkin's resume, and it's difficult because of how fucked over he was. But he won
right
vacant. Let's see. I want to make sure I get this right. He won the interim WBA title back in 2010. Then he was elevated to the regular title. The super champion was Sturm, and he ducked Golovkin. The WBA allowed it, and the German promoters and commission all allowed it. He ducked Golovkin for years. By rights, he should have been able to fight Sturm. He would have obliterated him, and he would have been super champion. Either way, he had a ton of defenses of this regular belt. If we're not recognizing that, fine. But he does have wins over Proxa, Rosado, Matthew Macklin, Curtis Stevens, Daniel Gill. These aren't trash fighters. I understand they're not great, but they're not trash. Let's see, who else? Martin, I said Matthew Macklin, Martin Murray. And then he finally unifies titles against David Lemieux. And then, defends unified titles multiple times, consolidates 3 of the 4 belts. And then a lot of people feel that he beat Alvarez. In a modern era, dude, with just his amateur record, and then that might be enough right there, seriously. But then coming back and beating Derevyanchenko to win another title, and now if he unifies again with Murata, that's enough. In this era, that's enough to get in eventually.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah. We're talking about eras. Definitely, I agree with you on that. Definitely, it would seem like a Hall of Fame career for sure in this era. I mean, overall, like with Gotti, for example, I'm in the middle of agreeing if he should be in the Hall of Fame. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like you said, is like the fights that he gave the fans is kind of what he's remembered for. And was that enough to get in? No, but at the same time, you know what? I mean, he entertained the heck out of me. So that's worthy for me, But at the end of the day, with Triple G, it's all good. I mean, like I said, no disrespect to him. I like him as a fighter. I mean, I'm always watching his fights. But for me, questioning his Hall of Fame, resume kind of thing. I'm more based on opposition. You know what I'm saying? Like I think that's. But at the end of the day, like your point that you made definitely makes sense, and I can see why he would.
Well, let me ask you this real quick.
That's one thing.
I was just going to ask you this real quick. What about Vladimir Klitschko? I voted for him last year. It was his first year of eligibility, and to me, he was a no-brainer. Him, Floyd, and Andre Ward were no-brainers. I voted for all 3 of them. Would you vote for Klitschko?
So. Okay, so therein lies where you actually your argument and what you said about Triple G. Yes, because it's because of the era. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
That's why I would vote for him because of the era he was in. Kind
and
of
he
the
was
same
champ
thing where
for
you
10
say,
years. He was the champ for 10 years, dude. And he unified all the belts except for the BC, but his brother had it. So that's why
I would say so too.
Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right.
I'm not putting Golovkin with Klitschko, but he's Golovkin's not as good as Klitschko, but he's he's one of those guys that I think the overall body of work will eventually get him in, but he's not going to be an obvious first year pick like Klitschko, in my opinion. At least not yet.
Right.
Anyway, I'm sorry, brother. Go ahead.
Yeah, you're no good. No, you're right, bro. I agree with what you're saying, and I see that point of view where you're coming from. But last thing, man, the David, the Haney, and the Jojo Diaz fight. I see everybody kind of going for Haney. I know you're picking Haney too. I'll tell you something, man. I feel Jojo, his experience is definitely gonna, make a big difference in this fight. It's gonna go. It's either gonna go all 12 rounds, or somebody's gonna get stopped. And I don't know if it's gonna be. And Jojo is, he has a chin, man. Jojo has a chin, but Haney's more accurate. But I think Jojo needs to really just stay inside and just rough him up and what he's saying he's going to do. And if he does that, Jojo's going to win the fight, bro. If he follows that game plan the way he fights normally, he's going to win that fight. The only way I think I see Haney winning is him boxing and being in distance and using the distance and boxing. But other than that, if Jojo gets in there, he's going to take it, man. He's going to take it. What do you think?
I think that it wouldn't shock me to see Jojo do that. It's just that I don't think he's big and strong enough to do that to Haney. I think Haney's going to box from the outside. Diaz is going to have moments. We're going to see some learning on the job. I think Haney learned a lot in that fight with Linares. I don't think Diaz is explosive and as long as Linares to land some of the shots Linares did late in the fight with Haney. So I got to go 116, 112 with Haney. But I agree with everything you're saying about Diaz, dude. If this fight was like at 130, I'd feel better about it for him. But at 35 and north, it wouldn't shock me if Diaz wins. But I'm taking Haney if I was a betting man.
Hey, you think Haney is stronger than Jojo?
On the inside, probably not. But when all Haney really has to do, and hopefully he's learned how to do this, is lean, kind of lean on him on the inside, tie him up, wait for the ref to come over. That's going to really be the question, dude. Is the ref going to let Jojo work on the inside? My hunch is no. This is a matchroom card.
Do we know who the ref is, though?
Who's the ref? I didn't even look.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, do we know?
Let's see. Let me see. Maybe I'll find it. Let me see if they have it listed. I just know this is a matchroom card. Haney's a matchroom guy. No, I don't know. I don't know who it is.
No. Well, I mean, you're right. I think, Jojo is stronger on the inside. I think he's just a stronger guy overall. But at the end of the day, that's the only way Jojo will win is inside, roughing him up and being dirty. Yeah. And if he does that, and I know it's a matchroom card, but if he does that, he does that better than Haney, 100%. And let's not forget, Haney has fought, I mean, mediocre. I guess you can say best fight was with Linares, but Linares is a little older there. Jojo he's young, man. And his body is more mature than Haney, and I think he's gonna have a rough time. Maybe for sure in the first half of the fight with Jojo, if he's in there and roughing him up and fighting inside, but you might find his rhythm or his distance later on. But other than that, man, if the judges are right and everything's fair, I think Jojo will take it if he's inside, man. And I'm willing to bet on that if I was a betting man. But you never know with these judges and with boxing, bro. You know that. But other than that, man, I just wanted to call, say what's up, and hear about with the GG thing, because this whole Hall of Fame thing has to kind of like take a step, hold on, put the brakes on until maybe when he beats Murata, like you said, and then we'll kind of say something. But other than that,
the story is still being written. But you're on the record with Diaz over Haney. We'll see what happens, man.
Yeah, for sure, man. Hey, one more last thing, dude. I can't believe Gigi's 40 years old already. Holy smacks, man. Yeah. But anyways, I thought it was a little younger, but 40, damn. But anyways, brother, happy holidays to you, or Merry Christmas, as they say, right. And take care of yourself.
All right, you too, brother.
All right, brother. Later.
All right, super chat from OJ22. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. He says, Mike, that's Floyd and his team not allowing Ring to the fight. Floyd doesn't want anyone around who isn't kissing ass. Sad. Yeah, and this is what I talked about on the roundtable discussion last night, really briefly. And, I've talked about it a few times on my show, but you guys know that Tank fought in Atlanta against Mario Barrios. And, of course, that was my assignment because I'm right down the street from the arena. So, and I went to his last fight here against Gamboa, covered it for Ring, and that was a fiasco in and of itself that I could talk about. But I applied for credentials like normal, went through the normal process. Doug contacted people. Doug, of course, is the editor. And we were blackballed. It was simple and plain. Like the morning of the fight, we got an email saying, we're at capacity. We have too much media. We can't bring you guys in. I know a couple guys that were there, and they were saying that most of the people there were just like local Atlanta bloggers and shit like that. There wasn't even a lot of mainstream boxing media guys there. A lot of the names you guys would recognize didn't even travel to cover that fight. So a lot of the bigger boxing platforms didn't even come to Atlanta. They weren't at capacity. That was an absolute fucking lie. They blackballed us. And they're mad at us because we don't rate Gervonta Davis pound for pound. And at that time, I don't even think we had him in our ratings, period, because we didn't know what weight class he was at. Remember the fight with Santa Cruz where it was for like, I think 2 versions of the interim or regular WBA something or other. I think 130 and 135. And they didn't even know what weight the fight was going to be at until the weigh-in. So we didn't know where to rate Davis. It's not that we don't see him as a top talent in at least 130 or 135. It's just, where do you rate him? So we briefly didn't have him even ranked. And it's not that we were hating. We're like, hey, what division are you going to rank? What division are you going to fight in, pal? We'll rate you there. But what division are you fighting in? Anyway, they were really, really butthurt that we don't have him on the pound for pound list and that we don't recognize his regular titles. Ring Magazine has a rule that we don't recognize the regular and interim belts. We don't. There are a few instances where we might, where there isn't a super champion involved. So we'll go with the highest rated belt or whatever. But we kind of made a ruling that we're going to stop recognizing all these regular and interim belts because there was 5,000 of them, right? So some people got butthurt over that. Anyway, the crazy thing is, guys, I'm covering that fight I'm still on the Gervonta Davis beat because I've covered his last few fights for Ring, and I did a story on him a couple years ago in the magazine. I've talked to his people. And so I've been covering his fights. I've just been doing deadline, like recaps of the fights for our website. And I'm going to do that this Sunday night. So like I was saying yesterday on this roundtable discussion I was on, you guys, if you click on certain websites and you want to get a recap of the fight, it's just going to be a PR bullshit. You guys know how it is. Oh, Tank is amazing. He's a top 5 pound for pound guy. He blasted Isaac Cruz out of there. Oh my God, he's so explosive. If you guys actually want a real breakdown of what happened and some honest talk about the performance and where that places Gervonta Davis, look for my recap on ringtv.com. But once again, thank you very, very much, man. I appreciate that. OJ22. Real quick, Taurine Falk asked a good question. What about Antonio Tarver Hall of Fame prospects, Mike? Is he in or out? A couple things are going to hurt him. Tarver, to me, was kind of a one-hit wonder with that knockout of Roy Jones. Didn't really do a whole lot outside of that, right? Like, I think the B-Hop fight, lost that one. And there's a couple other big fights he had that he lost. And also steroids. The guy was a drug cheat. So I think that's going to hurt him. Now, there are other guys who got busted with performance-enhancing drugs, but they have a lot of good wins or top title fights, things like that. Tarver's just a little short. He also didn't have a lot of fights in his pro career. So I don't know if he gets in, man. I don't know if he gets in. All right, let's jump back to the phones. I think we got Nacho on the line here. Let's see what's up from Nacho. There we go. Mike, Nacho, what's up, man?
Hey, what's going on? Nothing much. Just really quick, I just want to touch on that, the last caller talking about Golovkin. I think, like you said, he's going to get in eventually, but the biggest issue is just that, he's going to probably have to wait because a lot of people will, kind of critique his resume. Like you said, there were certain people that blatantly ducked him, like Sturm and Cotto and Sergio Martinez, among others, that didn't want to face him when he was beating those guys like Prosta and Rosado and Gil. And, like he ended up having to take on the second tier guys in the division because the top guys didn't want a piece of him when he was wrecking everybody. So that sucks for him that he's not going to be able to just technically prove it in the ring because a lot of dudes just avoided him flat out. So unless, like you said, unless he beats guys like Murata, and then maybe if he was to beat, I hate to say this, but if he was to beat a Charlo, then who knows? Maybe he gets him because of that, because then he'd have 3 belts again at one point.
Right.
You know, he could make the case that So, yeah, like you said, time will tell. Just really quick about the Davis card. I think the card overall is decent. My only thing is that I'm just curious to see if how Isaac Cruz performs. The kid's never been on this type of stage as far as like the bright lights are shining directly on him. He's the main event, and he's kind of the last minute replacement. I'll be just curious to see how he performs with all of that pressure as far as like him having to go out there and put on a good performance, because a lot of people are just basically looking at him as a guy who's going to go out there and just get beat up by Davis and not really do anything. I think the kid might have a legitimate shot to make some noise, and I'd like to see him put up a good fight at the very least. So we'll see what happens. You were talking about like the whole thing, Mike, where they were blackballing the ring and saying like, they couldn't accommodate you guys. The one thing I do find kind of hilarious is that they are really turning up the PR hype on Davis. Like they're advertising the fight out here on the radio, talking about he's a 5-time world champion.
Yep.
And also too, I noticed that on All Access, because I watched the episode the other day, they were talking about him as a 3-time weight class a champion. So I was just like, oh, come on, really? Like they're just laying it on really thick, trying to convince people that he's like the real deal when he hasn't beaten anybody. So, it's just kind of comical. But I mean, what else is new with Floyd and TMT? Doing what they're doing. They're trying to sell him as a legitimate pound for pound guy, but he hasn't beaten anybody to convince us that he is pound for pound at this point. And then the other thing is, just going back to the Golovkin, and then actually the other fight that I just found out that was supposed to happen around that same time, Ancajas and Ioka got canceled as well.
Yeah.
I'm disappointed. That's not like those 2 fights would have been really entertaining to watch, and it sucks that they decided to put this COVID lockdown on foreigners now and not allow the fights to happen. But I mean, yeah, I hope that both of these fights get rescheduled, because I think they're both competitive matchups that would definitely help determine, who's like the better fighter in both of those weight classes for sure. So, and then with Haney Diaz, I kind of gave my prediction on Monday's show, Mike. I think, like you said, I'm kind of leaning towards 115, 113, 115, 112 being for Haney. I just think he's going to find enough of he's going to do just enough to win that fight over Diaz. But I think Diaz is going to give him hell in spots, because he's the most prime opponent that he's faced in his entire career. Like Linares was, long in the tooth at 36, and he gave him trouble. So I expect JoJo, who's 29, to definitely be a lot tougher and a lot fresher going up against Haney. So, all right, Mike, I'm sure there's probably other people calling in. That's my call.
All right, thanks, Nacho. Have a good one, man.
All right, man. You too.
Yeah, guys, look at this pay-per-view lineup here. $80. Let's talk a little Tank Davis here. Gervonta Davis going up against Isaac Cruz, and this isn't a title fight. And so my recap on ringtv.com won't even mention the belt, okay? Because it's not a real belt. This is a showcase fight. Tank Davis is going to win by knockout. It's probably going to be a pretty explosive knockout after some competitive early rounds where Cruz actually lands a few hard punches on Tank that gets the crowd oohing and awing a little bit. The Mexican fans there, remember, this is in LA. The Mexican fans that are going to be pulling for Cruz, and any punch he lands are going to go nuts. He's going to have a couple of moments early on because it's not that hard to hit Davis. Davis will adjust. and maybe middle rounds or so, he's going to blast this guy out of there. Maybe late rounds. We'll see. It just really depends on how much Cruz's chin holds up. The co-main, Sebastian Fundora versus the Spaniard, Sergio Garcia. I like Fundora in that fight. I think that Garcia, we haven't seen him leave the cozy confines of Europe. I think he's fought maybe in the UK, most of his fights in Spain, but he hasn't left and come over to the States, I don't believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I just think that Fundora, this is really good matchmaking for him to be in there with a guy who's got experience, who's going to move, who's going to box, and give him some trouble early. Fundora is going to have to learn on the job a little bit and then start carrying things out late. But I like Fundora. Interesting fight here. Sergey Derevyanchenko, Carlos Adames. Now, a prime Derevyanchenko absolutely dominates Adames, right? But at this point in Derevyanchenko's career, he's so worn out, dude. His last 4, 5, 6 fights have been grueling, brutal fights. He's lost 3 of his last 4. He is a shop-worn fighter to a certain extent. So this is going to be highly competitive stuff. I'm going to enjoy this one. To me, it's probably the most competitive fight on the card. So anyway, I'll be covering it for ringtv.com. Look for my recaps there, okay? Now, tomorrow night at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, it's Devin Haney versus Joseph Diaz. And like I told you guys, I just think Haney's length and athleticism and the lessons he's learned from some recent fights will carry over into this. It's not that it's going to be easy. Diaz is absolutely going to have moments. He's going to push him. He's going to win rounds. But he's going to be punching up at Haney. He doesn't have the explosiveness, doesn't have the twitch that Linares does. Even the old faded Linares still has that little twitch every now and then and can hit you and land something. And I just don't see Diaz doing enough to like hurt Haney to discourage him enough where Diaz is going to win. Could be proven wrong though. But I like Haney. It's going the distance. That's a distance fight. Also in this card, Montana Love, prospect worth taking a look at. 140-pounder. I've gotten an up-close look at him a couple times. He'll be on this card. Check him out. Philip Hrgovic is on this card, of course, a heavyweight prospect. Also, Jessica McCaskill, defending her undisputed welterweight championship, and she's kind of in a showcase fight with the opponent that she's up against. She's been criticizing Katie Taylor a lot lately. I find that kind of interesting because her opponent here isn't very good. Okay. Real quick, super chats. Tareen Falk, thank you so much, my man. He says, not Triple G's fault for his resume was ducked by Sturm, Cotto, Martinez, Canelo, Gil, and Quillen on his rise. Those were the best at 160 at the time. Yeah. He was flat out ducked by Sturm and all the Germans. There's a few of the top German fighters he was ducked by that never fought him. Cotto paid him $500,000 to not fight. Sergio Martinez flat out ducked him. At that point of his career, though, I kind of couldn't blame Sergio Martinez. Flat out ducked him. Canelo threw his WBC belt in the garbage to wait out Golovkin for 2 years. Think about Canelo and his relationship right now with the WBC. It's basically the We Back Canelo organization, right? Canelo threw his WBC belt in the trash to avoid fighting Golovkin. All right, Quillen, hilarious. Get out of here with Quillen. So, like, that just tells you. Now, he doesn't have the resume. I get it. And yes, that was a regular WBA belt that he defended all those times early on, although it should have been the super belt. If he would have fought Sturm, he would have beat him. He would have had the super belt. Either way, WBA and their nonsense, fine. You don't want to recognize that those title wins, fine. He ends up unifying 3 of the 4 belts anyway, and then he ends up beating Canelo Alvarez in their first fight. So that alone is good enough, combined with his amateur accomplishments. He should have won the gold medal in the Olympics. He was ripped off. He got the silver. I think he eventually gets in, but I do think he needs to beat Murata. If he gets beat by Murata, I don't know, guys. He might fall short of Hall of Fame. He just might. He needs to beat Murata. Deed with the super chat. Thank you, Deed. He says, really disappointed that Triple G Murata got postponed. You're not alone, brother. We're all pissed off. And the Ioka fight, because I was really looking forward to that one. Ioka is one of my favorite fighters. But the thing is, dude, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's just going to take maybe till February or March, but we're still going to get that fight. It's still going to be a lot of fun. and it's going to be, I just think their style, they match well, their styles, and the crowd is going to be awesome. Just the atmosphere. I really can't wait for that one. And I think it's going to be one of those experiences that you remember as a fan, because I think they're going to air it live here, stateside. So it's going to be like a morning fight here, like that Donaire Inoue fight was. That was a lot of fun, man. Okay, back to the phones we go. Let's take a couple more quick calls here. Going to the UK. What's going on?
How you doing? Management, okay? You all right?
Yeah, how are you?
I'm good, thank you, man. Good, thank you. Just chilling at the moment and thinking about what's going on recently in the boxing world, especially with the Floyd Davis thing and the level of delusion.
Yeah,
I have to say, from that side, it's like I have always been a steadfast Mayweather fan. Always, before he was popular, when he was fighting in half-empty casinos against Chop Crawley, and and love, you know what I mean. So way back before people jumped on the bandwagon, you know what I mean. So,
yeah.
But with regards to his comments about trying to throw shade at Canelo, with regards to his achievements, who he's fighting, it speaks to me of insecurity on his part, because Floyd is a magnificent fighter and he hangs his hat on that, making the most amount of money in the sport, and basically, the 50-0. But what Canelo has achieved in 11 months with becoming undisputed at super middle, as much as I love Floyd, Floyd never achieved undisputed. To me, that's a little bit significant. Even though I understand with Floyd's star power, he surpassed the need of having a title. Do you know what I mean? Because he was bigger. You know what I mean? So, but him with Floyd and Leonard Ellaby trying to con the people, fool fight fans, hardcore fight fans in the US and around the world about Davis, it's quite laughable and almost a little bit insulting, because I can see right through it, all the clout chasing. You're mentioning names like Josh Taylor and Teofimo Lopez and Loma a few years back, knowing that there was no intention at all that you're going to face these guys. Do you know what I mean? Because it's quite clear what they're doing with regards to their plan. Tank is not. I mean, I'm a fan of Tank as well, but but I have to be objective, which is fucking rare with boxing fans nowadays. I find, especially on Twitter, because like I keep saying every time I ring in, cesspool. But anyway, it's just that I feel like Tank is not it. He's a prize fighter, but after legacy, he's there to make as much money as humanly possible. With Floyd and Ellaby as his backing, they know exactly what they're doing with regards to it, So I'm not fussed about his career anymore until he fights someone noteworthy, because if he's going to keep it in-house, he's running out of options in-house with the PBC. I feel he is. But at some point, they're going to have to bite the bullet and take a chance, basically, with him in the next few years, because he doesn't register with me anymore. I used to get behind him, but I just can't do it anymore, mate. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just can't support you as much as
well,
you want.
And then on top of it, they're calling themselves, 5-time champion. They're putting fights on pay-per-view. Yeah. And that's kind of the thing that annoys me. And then they're blacklisting any media that tells the truth about what's going on. It's if your mission is to build the brand right now, nobody faults you for that. Just own it and say, we're building a brand right now. We're taking our time and we want to go to pay-per-view and build up, our profile in the pay-per-view market. Cool. That's fine. But you can't have it both ways,
Yeah, exactly. I agree with you wholeheartedly there. It's like, I have nothing against Tank, and I'm, when he burst on the scene for me, when he beat Pedraza, I was like, who is this? And you just beat a solid fighter, Pedraza, So
because that was 2017. That was 4 years ago. Yeah. Because I said when he beat Pedraza the way he beat him, I was like, oh shit, who's this kid? Because I had seen him on Showbox or something, but I was like, whoa, okay, but he hasn't done dick since then. That's the problem.
Yeah. I mean, he's like 7 years into his career. The dude's like 27. They're treating them, like, they're matching them like as a prospect, and it's like you're looking at the level of opposition they're matching them against. I understand, like you said, the building a brand, and how do you build a brand? You give the people what they want, and people want to see knockout. Aims to delivering that. I get the model. Not that I'm no expert at all, but I see what I get the model. But I think Floyd and Leonard need to just seriously have a look at themselves with regards to the comments they're making about all the. Though I understand they're the promoter, so you're going to have to promote your fighter, even though you may not believe half the shit you say yourself, but you have a job to do. But it's quite ridiculous. So, yeah, and I have to say with regards, I wanted to call in on Monday about the Diaz and Combosa Jr. Fight, but I took in my 2 cents worth now. Okay, I am not surprised that Combosa won, because I agree with you in the fact that I thought it was going to be a lot more competitive, but I thought that TA would edge it. But Combosa burst on the scene, and it's good for the sport, I feel, because you have a guy who's like, hopefully he won't be drinking from the, sipping his own Kool-Aid. I don't want him to fall in the traps of the adulation and the yes-men, as in Tio and Deontay Wilder has done, and basically just be the fighting champion that he is. So I have no issue with him taking his belts back to Australia and say, "You want these? Come get them. You come to Australia, mate." You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And, I don't want to hear none of this. Oh, I'm the A side. You've got to come to the States, and it's like, no, not at all, son. If you want these belts, you come over here. If you don't, you stay over there. I'll face someone else. You know what I mean? So, I hope he does. I want to see these young American fighters put their money where their mouth is. Would you travel? I know Davis has already when he fought in the UK.
Yeah.
At one time, but I want to see if anyone else will travel. I mean, Haney was saying that he'd fight him on Jupiter. Cool. I don't know about, with the atmosphere and everything, but anyway, that'd be cool. But that's what. I'm all good for the. I'm all good with Combosa winning the belts, taking them back home to Australia, and say, "You want them, come get them." That's absolutely fine with me.
He's earned that right. He's earned that right.
He has earned that right. Yeah, most definitely has. Yeah, and one more thing, touching on about the Triple G, as a previous caller was talking about, I feel like I agree with you. He will get in at some point. Look, like, I could see the trepidation as to why people would not choose to put him in, because recently I understand why he's doing what he's done, like you said, about him getting screwed over with decisions here, there, and everywhere, and being avoided like the plague by champions and everything. And but I think he'll get in eventually. I mean, a lot of this stuff that happened in his career is not his fault, and people need to remember that. They really, really do, when they consider about Triple G and what he's done, because a lot of his prime years were stolen from him by people not wanting to fight him. But really, that's my point anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. A lot of people feel that way, and I think he's a sympathetic figure. There's a lot of people that absolutely hate Golovkin, and they just always will. But I think people that are reasonable and look at, the politics the guy dealt with and how well he fought, despite all that and all of his accomplishments. I mean, you think of a guy from Kazakhstan starting his career in Germany and then having to restart his career in his 30s in the United States. So he kind of had two different careers. And on top of all the amateur accolades, I mean, he's clearly one of the most accomplished fighters in the world over the last 10 years. So I think eventually he'll get in, but probably not first ballot. Probably not. No,
not first ballot, no. I'm surprised James Toney didn't get in first ballot, actually. When was he made eligible for Hall of Fame voting?
A few years after he retires. After, like, your last pro fight. And then...
all right, okay. So is that 5 years or something like that, is it?
I think it might be 3 years now. I can't remember. I think they changed it to 3. It might still be 5. I can't remember off the top of my head because they've changed it a couple times. And then it's, I think the last time we did it, it was you can vote for as many as 5, but you have to vote for at least 3. So I usually will vote for 5. I'll put all 5 people. Like last year, I voted for Floyd, Andre Ward, Vladimir Klitschko, Those were my three like locks, and then it was James Toney and Miguel Cotto. Those are the other two I voted for last year.
Yeah, cool. All right. And before I let you go, Mike, one more thing I just want to say to everyone listening: hit the like button. All right. And again,
I appreciate that.
And the prime example: foreign fighters coming into US soul, getting the business done. No qualms, no fanfare, no fancy photos, no jewelry. Step in the ring, gloves up, kicking ass.
Hell yeah, baby.
That's what needs to happen, man.
Hell yeah.
Most definitely. All right, and on that note, Mike, as always, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for
enjoy your weekend, sir.
And you as well, man. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, man. All right, here, let's catch up here in this chat. Man, the Triple G debate, I'm just looking here in the chat, and it's just interesting because Rich says 3 years. Yeah, I can't remember, dude, because they changed it. The 3 and 5 thing messes me up. So 3 years sounds right for eligibility. But Triple G causes this real divide among fight fans. And I think that there's a school of fight fans that feel that Triple G was pampered and like privileged. And then there's a school of fans that feel he was kind of got screwed over. I'm one of those guys that can see both ends of that spectrum. I mean, again, it's hard for me to feel bad for Golovkin because ultimately he's going to retire having made over $100 million. And he, say what you will about the fight with Canelo, the first fight, he signed to do the rematch, and he signed to go right back to Nevada and fight the machine again. And, he got his paper up. He increased his split of the purse and stuff, but you made your deal with the devil twice, dude. And you got burned the first time, and then you made another deal with the devil. So you know who you're dealing with. But again, as I've stated before, I mean, I really look back at boxing history, and I can look back at the different waves of fighters, and some it took longer than others for multiple reasons. But I could get into that for hours, but because some of it was societal stuff happening. But in the sport of boxing specifically, there's that first generation that kind of has to go through those growing pains so that future generations can benefit. And for Golovkin, he's the first guy from, I know he's 3/4 Eastern European, right? But he is a quarter Korean, and he's from a Central Asian country. So he's the first fighter with that admixture from Central Asia to come over here and really break through. And he showed that in the modern era, okay, because you got to think, guys, this was mid to late 2010s. And what you hear a lot from the networks and stuff, oh, it's so hard to build stars in boxing in America. It's so hard to build stars. Golovkin showed you the formula. He showed you the formula. Fight 3 or 4 times a year, knock everyone out. Be open with the fans and the media. Do a lot of media work, talk to the fans, sign autographs, take pictures. And that's what Golovkin was doing. And he was doing it as a guy who barely spoke English. What's amazing to me is that some fans hate him so much. They hate the guy so much. And they deny all those things that he did. 10, 15, 20 years from now, there's going to be fighters from that part of the world that are stars in the sport, that are beloved by Americans of all ethnic and political backgrounds. And it's a guy like Golovkin that kind of paved the way for those guys in the future. But what the most amazing part is that no fighter since has mimicked that formula. And we have guys sitting around bitching that they're being ducked, that they're being avoided. Well, so was he. This dude was so avoided, he moved to a new continent. Now, it's the most prosperous country in the world where he moved to, so okay, I get it. If you were born here, why would you leave here and move, to Germany? You'd want to stay here. But Triple G went where the action was and rebranded and restarted this whole thing. And within 3 or 4 years had built a brand. And yes, he eventually got the big paydays with Canelo, but people don't realize, man, he didn't make over $1 million. I think his first 7-figure payday was that pay-per-view with David Lemieux. Because I think for Marco Antonio Rubio, he got like 900, 950, something like that, if I remember correctly. HBO was paying him a few $100,000 to get in the ring and knock out, most of the time, let's be honest, a B-level fighter, maybe top 10, top 15, but on the bottom side of the top 10, top 15 of the middleweight division. But he was getting in there and drilling dudes 3 or 4 times a year. And he did that for a few years, and he stayed out of the casinos. He fought in New York, LA, New York, back and forth, right? Built it up in both the big markets in America. It's not that difficult. The formula is pretty simple, pretty basic. Not one fighter since has mimicked that formula, because it requires a substantial investment with your time and energy, and you have to swallow your pride, and you have to take short money. Golovkin could have sat on his ass, fought once a year for $2 or $3 million, got a deal with one of these promoters somewhere, and just went for the money, and done it that way, which you see a lot right now. But he did it a different way. I'd love to see just one fighter do that right now. What if Jaron Boots Ennis right now started doing what Golovkin did in 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015? What if Boots Ennis or Virgil Ortiz or somebody was doing that right now? Holy shit. What if Gervonta Davis was doing that right now? Oh, man. Could you imagine? All right, back to the phones. 570, you're on. What's going on?
Hey, how you doing, Michael? Thank you for taking my call.
Yeah, man.
I just got a question here. Talking about fights, I know that it's ripe right now. I would love to see Benavidez against Canelo. I just don't like Canelo, however great you want to say, jumping up to cruiserweight against I believe his name is Makuba. Is there Makuba? If I'm pronouncing it right.
Makabu.
Nobody knows what
Ilunga Makabu, yeah.
Yeah. You know what I mean? I think it's right for Benavidez, and he could say, you got the belt stripped from him. He was 20 years old, though. He went overweight, and one was for the cocaine. I mean, people forget, too, Canelo had the problem with the tainted meat that time. But, I mean, take that away. The kid is an incredible fighter at 168, and it's right. A lot of people know who Benavidez is.
Yeah.
And I think the time is right. And I think what's avoiding it, like you were talking earlier, I mean, there's the promoters now, it's just, there's too many. And I think it's hurting the sport, because I could go back to when I've been a fight fan. I come from a fight town in Scranton. I seen some big fighters come through the CYC in Scranton here. I seen Tyson fight here twice as an amateur. I used to watch Mark Holmes sitting there when he was undefeated, like Larry's younger brother. Larry started his career here.
That's right. Yeah.
And when I was a kid, as soon as on a table that was right there, my uncle bought me, was the Ring magazine. That was a big thing. And boxing was great. And the convention hall, Atlantic City, when I went down there, the cards were tremendous the whole night. I mean, I look back here when I watched when Oscar De La Hoya came here for the first time, and I think the only time into the East, when he fought Wilfredo Rivera. The undercard was Keith Mullins against Terry Norris, where that was an upset for Mullins. And under that, Yuri Boy Campus fighting Raul Marquez. Incredible fight. So you had 3 top fights. These were the cards that were built up. Like today, like you're saying, they're trying to sell Davis for this week. Like I like Davis, but I don't know how great he is. But you know what I mean? Not many people know who he's fighting,
right?
And not many people respect him right now with Mayweather. But I think that's the problem now with all these promoters. They can't match up the number 1 to number 2 guy, and I think that's hurting boxing, especially with Canelo. Listen, I'm not going to take anything away from Canelo. I know he's a great fighter, but I think it's hurting the sport when he's jumping up, and he could do it because people will pay to see it, to fight this cruiserweight instead of fighting Benavidez. I think it'd be great for boxing if these two just came together and fought. Whether Canelo beats him or Benavidez beats him, but that's what we need to see, because a lot of people, I'm in Benavidez' corner. I know there's a lot of Canelo fans, but what's it saying? It's right. People want to see it. And I think it has to happen now. The more we let this go, the more promoters that are ruining the sport are jumping in and just taking away the great fights, because everybody wants to control the dime and try to sell that fighter, like they're saying what Mayweather's doing with Davis right now. Sure, he's just trying to sell him to make money. I think Davis is a good fighter. I don't know if he's a great fighter, we're not going to know that till they put him into the ring against the top opponent. And it seems like they're going to keep avoiding it. And it's sad because it's sad even for the light heavyweights right now. Better be a. I mean, he's 38 years old now. So, and 16 or 17-0 with 17 knockouts, but Father Time's catching up. So we're not going to see the same better be than we did 4 or 5 years ago. But that's just my opinion, Michael. I don't know what you think about it right now.
No, I've been saying, I think that.
You know what?
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Before I forget, I just have one question. I know you vote for the Hall of Fame, but is Tim Witherspoon in? There's one heavyweight I would love to see get in there. And I know he got screwed early on in his career with Don King. He was scared. He got out of the game for 4 or 5 years because he was afraid of Don King. But I'm not sure if he's in.
Let me check real quick. I don't think so. I think
he deserves. There's another guy. He gave Larry Holmes one hell of a fight. Like that was the toughest fight Larry Holmes ever had before he lost to Tyson, before he lost to Michael Spinks. And that's one fighter I think that should be in there. And Vinny Pazienza, I'd love to see in there. I mean, there's a 5-time champion. I think the Hall of Fame goes on what people think today. The younger fighters, they don't know these past fighters, but those heavyweights from back in the day, I'm sure you'll agree, the second tier heavyweights, and Tim Witherspoon wasn't second tier, he was a first tier, but even the second tier were one tough heavyweight fighters back in the day. Ray Mercer, that's just one name to give. He'd give anybody a fight.
Yeah, Mercer was great, man. Yeah, Mercer was a tough guy.
Yeah.
I can bring up Witherspoon with some of the fellas. I can ask about him, because I don't even know if he is on the ballot. To be honest with you, I can't remember seeing his name. But I can. Yeah. But real quick, I do think that the Canelo fight with Benavidez is going to happen. I think that they're just going to milk that. Canelo basically is the new Floyd Mayweather, and they're waiting out Beterbiev to see if he gets a little older. Then they'll fight him when he's ripe for the picking. There's no rush to fight Benavidez. When they do fight him, I think they're going to, do it at 68 so that he struggles to cut weight. They're going to wait a little longer, hoping that he kind of grows out 168 a little bit, because then they can do it there, make it tougher for him. At 175, that's going to benefit Benavidez better. So for Canelo, it's just all about timing. Right. I do think he's going to fight these guys, but he's going to do it on his time, and he's going to manipulate things to fight in controlled situations, because that's what he does. He's the top guy. It's what Floyd did. It's what Oscar did. Not as much though. Oscar really did take some real challenges. So he did. I do think the fight will happen, but we're probably just going to have to wait for it. That's all.
Yeah, right. Speaking of Oscar, though, he did take a lot of fights. I mean, Sweet Pea, Obakar.
Yes, he did. Even B-Hop.
Yeah.
I mean, that B-Hop fight, how many guys, people forget that Oscar started as a lightweight, man. He was a lightweight when he was a prospect.
Exactly. Absolutely. There's another fighter who's going in this year, man. One of my favorite fighters just met B-Hop. I met him. I sat with his grandfather and his aunt to see Ivan Robertson years back. You talk about the nicest guy in the world that would sit down with anybody for a half hour and just talk about boxing. One of my favorite middleweights of all time. I called him, he was a chess master of the game. It seemed like he knew the other opponent's game better than what the other opponent knew, because he gave everybody one hell of a fight. Roy Jones, especially in '93, it took him, I think, 16 years to give him a rematch.
Yeah. Well, Roy was smart with his matchmaking too.
Fighter.
Yeah, and B-Hop is
and I think
probably one of the most disciplined human beings I've ever met. Just an extremely disciplined man. Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt about that, because he went on late in his career and did great boxing into his 40s. I mean, it takes a disciplined fighter.
And he still eats right.
And Michael,
he still eats right. He doesn't drink. He's just a very disciplined man.
Absolutely. And Michael, I really appreciate your call. You have a great show, and keep doing great with Ring Magazine. Be very objective with these promoters. I think they're hurting the game.
Thank you. I appreciate that, brother. Have a good weekend.
All right. Hey, you have a good night. You too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Ciao. All right, guys. We've been going for over an hour, so we're going to drop off here, get the Friday night started. One last shout out to my friends in the Atlanta area. If you want to come out tomorrow to see College Night, I'll be calling the fights. It's going to be a lot of fun. Buckhead Fight Club. Just check out the website. If you guys just want to watch the live stream, it's free. It's free. Just go to the WBC channel. All right. Just Google WBC live channel. Boom. You'll get the link and you can check it out. All right. It's going to be a lot of fun. And your boy's going to be calling the action. That's why I had to get the fresh cut. Now I just have to comb it. I haven't combed it yet. All right, guys. Have a good one. I'll see you at the fights. Ciao.